Hi, this is Krusty here again today. And today I thought maybe I would do a little video about recovery process, my own recovery process, and the dating scene, and how that's been working out for me. As all of you are aware that I am also been in recovery for quite a while now, with drugs and alcohol, and also narcissistic abuse syndrome. Um, and I just kind of maybe want to tell you a couple stories about how the dating scene has been going. And I have to say that it really hasn't been going like I thought. And although I do see it now that I still do have a long ways to go, um, sometimes it's interesting to get back out there, because I've always been one that tries to keep her courage by going out and just keep trying things over and over again. That's a part of not giving up, and to further myself in life, be it needed in any situation. Jobs, or just life in general, and meeting different people. I know I don't live in a very big town, and so it's just kind of, sometimes it's nice, especially after a person isolates or something for a while after an abusive situation, or in my case, when I felt sick for quite a while with the mold, and then of course all the bad teeth and things like that. It feels good to kind of get out. So I might be a little more slow on this video today because I just got my last tooth out a few days ago, and still I'm just kind of tired from that, and I've had to keep working. But I thought this might be interesting. So I went out I went out with one guy so far um after my ex, which was a narcissist and also an alcoholic, substance abuser, um, mostly an alcoholic. In fact, my last two relations have been with alcoholics, and I really did not know how to deal with it. When I met them, we were at the bar drinking. And although I can't ever really drink much because of my stomach disorder, it's always been like that. Um, Still, it doesn't keep me from finding partners that do, and being empaths and caregivers. And when we have never learned any kind of boundaries or anything like that, um, we fall more towards attracting mates that have more problems like cluster B, personality disorders, be it uh, border BPD, borderline, or narcissism, antisocial, histrionic, you name it, we draw it. So that's been, of course, my case all my life. Or maybe even not so extreme, but maybe just to the point where that person is kind of a milder form of narcissistic, where their selfishness and egos just take over to the point where they just completely leave out everybody around, including you, and like basically the world really revolves around them. And you get no real empathy from these types of people, or caring back, or basically love. And that's essentially what we need in relationships, which I am learning myself as well, where come from a family where all of it seemed really great on the outside, and it was all faked and acted out in a way where even themselves it was very believable that there was that it was a good home life, although there is such a type called covert narcissism. I will talk about that in a different video. Okay, so let's get on with this. I know that in all of my abuse classes that my support group that I go to here in town, I remember asking them, me and another woman were like, when is it a good time to date? And after, the relationship ends with the narcissist. And they said, well, it's good to wait for at least a year after everything, like no contact and everything. And so, of course, I'm still kind of confused and extremely lonely, because we can be very, very lonely after having a relationship like this. Because usually in that relationship, that person can cut off or smear us to all of our family and friends and the public, and do just many various ugly forms of keeping you away from other people. And so anyways, I know that it has been a real struggle for me to end this with the last one, because he would keep coming back and telling me that he still wanted me and he still wanted our relationship, although I would always have to run to him in the end, where I would always have to run to him and over to where he lives at now. And it got to the point where he wouldn't even call me anymore. But that went on. It just kind of dwindled down from like a year and a half since I moved to this new apartment that he's moved away. And it was really hard, because in all this time, all this learning, I knew that I had to get away from him. But there's this part of a person, a victim, that can't really let go. I mean, sometimes it can be an extreme struggle. It can be like a drug, because that person can dangle all the good carrots in front of you again, and how life was once during the love bombing. They can really dangle that, and the sex and everything like that. And still talk with you and act like everything is okay. But when in fact, all of a sudden, you don't really see them much anymore. They say they're busy all the time, doing their own thing. And then you feel like kind of a dote sitting off on the side, like, well, this guy doesn't really like me, and I really don't like him, but still, I want him as bad as the drug. That's what narcissist abuse can do. It's even when you're trying to break up with this person, and, it happens over and over and over again, and you just can't seem to let them go. It's hard. And when I finally did begin to realize and understand all these videos that I watch, and when he went to jail for a month, just a month ago, for drinking and driving, I would, for quite a long time now, I would find other things to do, and I would take my mind off of him. And it's really kind of been a really slow, gradual process, but it was to the point where, I did not need him all the time. And I would go find other things. I would work, and I would just go find other things to do, spend time with my children, and get more start just kind of focusing more on me and not on him, because it can be really bad. So anyways, yeah. During that time that he was gone in jail, I remember being so happy and so relieved, because I didn't have to do anything. Knowing that he was gone and that he was in there, I had no desire to even talk to him, like, for visiting hours or anything. We had had that big fight. And, he had threatened to call the police on me the last time when I accidentally broke his window. So I know this is kind of like a TV drama. But, you know, I really had, I really felt like there was a part of me that really was establishing that it was over and that I wanted to move on. I really especially felt that when he came back, the day that he got out of jail and suddenly knocked on my door and I opened it, and then he wanted things from me like money and so forth. And and then after I gave it to him, he left, and then you know, of course, never heard from him again. He took off, and I couldn't even find him when Memorial Day came around. And usually I spent it with him and his family. And there wasn't kind of in a drunken stupor again, you know, because they would get me to drink over there. And so, you know, a part of me seems to be lifting off of that need for the dependence of even alcohol or even going to the bars at all or sitting. Um, a point of me, it's passing, a part of me is passing where, a while back, in my mind, I kept thinking, this is the only place where I know how to meet men is the bar. This is the only place where I know how to meet people. But I think in the phase of alcohol and substance abuse recovery, one needs to pass that phase as well. Um, so, you know, once a person can stop thinking like that and get past that, that's a really big step for me because I am really beginning to start saying no to alcohol, not just when being pressured to drink or use by, say, toxic people or boyfriends or so forth, but really myself, that I can really learn how to say no by myself. So that's really a big one. Um, okay. And, you know, I have to say that, I guess when they said, I'm also kind of doing the same thing, like, it's almost like I'm using him going back for this and for that, you know, when I know there's no real structure, nothing real is there or ever will be there with a narcissist relationship. It's kind of like learning how to say no uh, by myself again with this relationship because going to his house is almost like having a drink, you know? So, I know that when, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just a little off today. This is kind of drawing out, but I know that when Memorial Day came and I had this big urge to drink, and I had this big urge to go over there and see him like I usually do, I couldn't find him. It's not like I didn't drive around because I did have that urge, you know, that relapse. And but when I couldn't find him, I remember getting really upset. And instead of going into that pit of despair, which I could not stand, I went to kind of finalizing inside of myself and inside of my mind that I needed to find a new man, you know? I needed to find a man that wasn't like that. I needed to find a man that wasn't narcissistic anymore. And well, I was up to go find one. I was done, I was through, and I had finally given up and created a space inside of myself where I felt and thought like, wow, you know, it's time to move on. Like right now. And putting action forth into the universe. I got on Facebook later and started looking up the single men. And of course, it still kind of felt like I was trying to get a fix, you know, on a man, you know, not a drink, but a man. that both factors still played out, that I wanted that fix in a man, but I also wanted a man that was no longer narcissistic, because I couldn't stand that anymore, you know? And so I did. I hooked up with a guy that night, and but for me, I just more along the lines of wanted a date, or maybe it was a fix. Because we ended up going to McDonald's, you know, and then I'm just gonna leave it at that. And so, but the thing was that he was another really funny one. Like, I started asking questions like you should do when you date, and you look for the red flags, and if there isn't any there, you're okay. If there's a few there, okay. But if there's quite a bit there that you're saying, it's not okay. So, understanding and learning, no, I'm really glad that I've learned this one, because it is really helping immensely, going back to these boundaries again. Because it's scary getting back into the dating world, you know, and really, I think to myself, I don't know if it really has been long enough, because my ex and I, we're still talking and stuff right until maybe like 2 months ago, you know, on and off, rarely, but I'm thinking, well, maybe I should wait for another year and just sit here and be single and just do some more recovery work. But I know that's hard for some of us, because I think that already during that year and a half, that was a little bit of time that I got to do some of that recovery work. But I think it's more like kind of when you feel ready. And also, you have to look at who you're attracting as well. And then also, the third factor comes in as to boundaries. Putting up boundaries and saying no to certain types, you know, that might all of a sudden be calling you and chit-chatting with you and wanting to come over and showing a lot of red flags, you know. I had this with the guy that I started to date. The first date was weird because when he left, I remember that he took something of mine. He took a telephone adapter. And I thought that was a cell phone adapter. I thought that was really weird because it wasn't his. And I texted him back and I said, well, you know, that's not yours. And you never asked to take that. And I said, I need that back. That is being assertive right there. And so he did give that back. But strange, you have to look for strange signs. Strange things that they're doing are also narcissistic flags. And he told me the night that we met that he was in drug and alcohol classes. And I thought right there, okay, I can sit here and be the enabler and be like, well, he is really going to clean up because he's doing these classes. But again, he was forced to do these classes, and usually things don't change with alcoholics. If they are forced into trying to change, they are going to have to want that change on their own before any real healing begins to happen. And right there, I thought, ugh, you know, it's another alcoholic. And but I did give him a second try, and it was bad. I remember I invited him, and I made the mistake of inviting him here for a date in my apartment, and he fixed me food, but he also got drunk, called my cat and myself fatty as a joke. That is also narcissistic when they're joking and insinuating really rude comments like that, you know. I mean, that's just not even nice stuff. Those are more red flags. And he started asking me for money, and at that point, I kicked him out. I was like, "This is the end of our date. You know, we're done." Also, I don't recommend that you throw the date in your house. Throw it away in a public area because they can take advantage of you. You know, real easy for those swift, especially the swift narcissistic pathological kind, to swoop down and use their suave hook ways, and that's how they get you addicted to them to begin with, with all that love bombing stuff. So I know it feels good, but you do have to watch the red flags. So I guess all in all, what I'm learning about this, I wanted to tell you about this second man that I thought about dating, and I had actually Facebooked both of them at the same time, this other man that I had met before. And I know that the other man kept texting me, like throughout this whole thing, and I told him that I had hooked up with somebody else, but he kept texting me anyways, and finally, this last time, last night, when he texted me and we started talking, again, I started asking him questions. He asked me right away if I drank, and I was just like, no, I don't. And then he asked me if I wanted, if for a date. I said, what do you want to do? And then he said, why don't we go hang out at the bar for a while? And right then I was like, ugh, puke, not another one, because sitting in AA classes, you do learn all these signs of what an alcoholic is and what he's not either. And a big sign of an alcoholic is when they want to go and hang out at the bar. And I asked him a question. Then I said, so do you usually drink on the weekends? Because you are still an addict if you still decide to have a case of beer on the every weekend. And an alcoholic in denial will say that that is not an alcoholic, and that is perfectly fine. And so I asked him that, and he kept skirting around the issue and changing the subject. And finally, what was different was in the past, what I would have done in a situation like that, I would have not told him no. I would have not stood up for myself. I would have agreed to the date and wherever he wanted to go. I probably would have drank too much at the bar, and it probably would have escalated further from there into either another cruddy relationship or maybe just kind of like a cruddy date, and then maybe it might have happened a few times and then it kind of dwindled off. And then I would end up crying in the end, just crying. Okay, so my point is, the last thing that I said to him was, look, I said, I am not into that anymore. I am sober these days. And if you like to drink on the weekends, I really don't even want to date you. I'm looking for someone that's clean and that does not do that. And it was kind of funny because this man was very insecure. Of course, when you have a problem like that, you usually are kind of insecure. And he texted me back like 3 more times that that was fine, and he hoped that I found somebody, and he kept writing me things like that for a while. And I thought, well, at least it was kind of nice, but still, again, it was just kind of like he gave himself away. It was really evident because he just decided he wasn't even going to try dating a woman or having a woman that did not allow him to drink alcohol on the weekends and, go out to the bar or whatever, So I know that in that instance, I felt so proud of myself. I I did feel that for once in my life, I felt um, good about myself, and I liked myself at that moment. And because I liked my decision, it was true, it was honest, it was clear, it was full of boundaries. Um, and I just, I still feel that. Like, there's just this sense of energy in me that it's the real me that I'm taking care of and protecting and really setting my real true values out there in the world. And it just feels phenomenal. I cannot think of a grander word how good it feels to finally break those chains. And even though it's kind of disappointing dating, but I think you do have to filter through men. And even if I might not be ready to find that guy yet, even though I still might have a long way to go with finding the right one and subtracting the wrong ones, my filtering might be long and never ending through these, which is my fear. Um, Still, at least I am filtering for once in my life, and really, I can't tell you how great that feels. And so if you learn anything from this today, I hope that maybe it can help inspire some others. So thanks for listening. I just had to tell you that. So thanks. Bye.